Excited to do this. You're obviously doing very positive things, so I'm looking forward to having a good conversation. Hopefully, learning a little bit about each other together.
Here we go.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jesse, and welcome to the Jess Takes a Village podcast, where we focus on regular people who have used their education, whether it be formal, vocational, or even life experiences, to propel their lives in a positive direction. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying your day today. I know we are. Aside from the time we're recording, it is pouring outside. Even as it's raining, there's still some sunshine. Ladies and gentlemen, to my left, also known as your right, met this guy literally within the last week. And I don't know him from a hole in the wall, but the things people have said about him just stands the test of time. I've heard that you're very studious, you're very responsible, you're a family person, and you're very diligent. Now, with those four qualities, I told myself, why not have you come on the platform? Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Drew to the platform. You can clap for yourself, too.
I like that intro.
It's something. Just off hearing what I heard, I feel like you're a very special person. And obviously, people would say, Jesse, you throw on the road special so much. But you're actually different from all the other 12 guests that I have, mainly because your day-to-day is in corporate America.
Yeah.
And with you being the first corporate America person, I just have like a wide slew of questions. So to start off, Drew, what's so attractive about corporate America to you?
The money. Like I don't know how else to put that.
Thanks for coming on the platform.
Yeah. Thank you.
So it's the money.
I think the money, the willingness to understand how the world actually operates.
Absolutely.
Right? Like my mom was a bus driver. She understands that world. I wanted to understand finance and banking, right? Like I had this drive to understand that. And I think the way that I was able to get there was through finance and through banking and through, what I'm doing now.
So I'm saying as a kid, you're sitting around probably playing with toys, just like a normal kid in Brooklyn, because you've mentioned to me that you're from Crown Heights. As you know,
yeah.
Oh, you're from the Bed-Stuy area.
Yeah,
okay. Banking isn't something just like you just fall into. What who or what introduced you to banking outside from obviously the financial gains, but like what was it?
So I think there's like a long arc of experiences that I had that led me down this path.
Okay.
It started off with me getting into a program called Prep for Prep when I was in.
I know Prep for Prep. I have friends who will go there for after school programs.
Yeah. So I did prep. I got in maybe when I was like 10, 11 years old. It was the hardest 14 months of my life.
Sheesh.
After I got out of that, I went to a private school, Browning, on the Upper East Side.
Okay.
And so Browning at the time was like $40,000 a year. Now it's like $60,000 a year.
That's what I paid at Long Island University.
Huh?
That's what I was paying at Long Island University.
For
a
college education, mind you.
Absolutely.
I was in 7th grade.
Jesus.
Right? Obviously, I got a scholarship because I couldn't afford that out of
Absolutely.
pocket. But I would have conversations with like some of my friends, and obviously, like I'm not from anywhere. I was living in the Bronx at the time, so I'm from Brooklyn originally.
Okay.
Lived a lot of my life in the Bronx. There was a point in time where like I would go over like my friends' houses and I would see the way that they lived, and then I would have to get right on the BXM7 and go all the way back to Co-op City in the Bronx and see the way that I had to live. And at one point, my mom had a conversation with me. She sat me down, and because I was telling her about this experience, like how big my friend's apartment was, etc. And she said, okay, so you see how he lives, and then you see how some of your family members live, and you see how we live. Now you choose how you want to live.
Jeez.
That's an obvious choice, right?
Absolutely.
So from that point forward, I was like, all right, like I got to do some of the things that these kids are doing and that their parents did in order to get them in that position. That's one experience.
Okay.
Obviously I was there for like 6 years, from 7th grade up until I graduated in 12th grade. I had another experience. I was sitting down with like one of my friends. This is maybe like 11th grade, so I'm already 16, 17 years old. And he was like, yeah, like my dad just bought me Apple stock and like I don't know what to do with it. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I had no idea what that concept was. And he was like, oh yeah, like you can just buy pieces of businesses. It's like public, you just do it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So for me, that was a revolutionary sort of like event, right?
The shift.
I had no idea that world even existed. And I chose at that point in time to like learn as much as I could about that because it was brand new to me. And it was interesting. So from that point forward, I started like doing like mock trading, like when I was in high school. I think I did relatively well there. I was like reading like at the time Business Insider, which is kind of like a tabloid business site, but I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
That and like Yahoo Finance, etc. I was like reading that every single day, like when I was on the bus. Like I was like really going down that path. All because of this like one spark that triggered it for me. And I think even like going back, like even like further, like my grandmother was always the one to like have conversations with me about like Christopher Columbus and like what they did to our people and like things like that. So I always had this like mentality, like I actually want to truly understand this world that we live in. And I just happen to use finance as the
bridge
to get to that
absolutely
point. Exactly.
That's so it's so strange because on the episode before I was talking to a coworker and I was saying, you know, sometimes, you know, you could grow up in a whole different neighborhood from someone and still have shared experiences.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I always wanted to become a stockbroker. And I remember just a quick little story. I was buying sneakers left and right at the age of 12, 13. My mom sits me down. I'm watching this little infomercial or like some interview. A boy who looks just like me was living in North Carolina. He was doing the same thing. His mom was like, hey, buy Nike stock. Long story short, the kid bought so much Nike stock, Nike started sending him sneakers. Now, I'm 12, 13, and I'm just like, whatever he did, I want to do.
Yeah.
And my mom introduced me to a lot of these books that you even see here yourself. So I got the Susie Orman book for the Young, Fabulous, and Broke. I got Rich Dad, Poor Dad when it first came out. And I was just so engulfed in stock market trades. This before I became a teacher, but I was hooked. I was like, I own a piece of this company. I was just doing it.
Yeah.
Even to this day, you know, I still have the Wall Street passion in my heart.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's so interesting that you were exposed to something and you just became like addicted to it.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to learn the ins and outs of it. So you're mock trading, you're 17. Where's the shift come where you're like, you know what? It's time for me to put my own money into this and let me get into this like fully.
Well, it's hard to do that when you don't have any money.
Absolutely.
Like, so I always knew that I like wanted to go down that path. At that point in time, I didn't know what I wanted to major in like in school.
Yeah.
I was like junior year. I decided then that I wanted to be a finance or economics. I had no idea which one, and I didn't really, frankly, at the time, even understand the difference. So I ended up going to Susquehanna University. And
where'd you go?
Susquehanna University, Central Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, Central Pennsylvania.
It's like 45 minutes north of Harrisburg.
Okay, right.
Central PA area. From day one, that's exactly what I knew that I wanted to do. That's the path that I chose, and I didn't really start investing like on my own until like maybe like my senior year. Like I worked like a couple internships.
Absolutely.
I saved a little bit of money, and I bought like Alibaba stock.
Alibaba,
right? Like at the IPO.
The eBay of China.
Yeah, exactly. That was a bad trade because it just didn't do that well.
It had a lot of promise though in the beginning.
It had a ton of promise. It was literally the Amazon of China.
Amazon is a better example.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of both actually. It's like both. You know, it's like a little bit.
Jack Ma knew what he was doing though.
Yeah,
he did.
He did, but the thing is, you're dealing with a communist government who has control over everything you do.
Absolutely. So if anyone doesn't, not to cut you, if anyone doesn't know, Jack Ma is actually the guy who started Alibaba. He's all the way overseas in Asia, and basically Alibaba is like the equivalent to like an eBay or Amazon.
Yeah.
User friendly. You click in, you look for goods, different things that you could acquire, different items. There's categories. You use your money, you buy it, ships to your house. Simple.
Exactly.
So the Alibaba trades fall through.
It was a bad trade. It's just not a good. I mean, the thing is, like, I was buying into the hype. I didn't recognize that the IPO price is not the price that I would be able to get in at.
Like, shake my hand. Shake my hand. I literally had this conversation with someone the other day. I said, you know, when you look at a stock ticker, right, and there's like an evaluation on what the price will be.
Yeah.
That's not the price we're gonna pay.
It's not.
It's not. So when they tell you, I remember Coinbase came out.
Yeah.
And I seen the early evaluations for Coinbase were gonna be at maybe like, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, maybe $70, $80 a share. By the time I got it, it was like $150, $200 a pop. And I'm just like, what is this?
Well, that pop is like a feature. It's not a bug.
Yeah.
They want it to pop day one because everybody wants to get rich. If I'm a banker and I'm pitching you an IPO of company, I'm pitching the founders who own a shit ton of, excuse my language, who own a ton of the stock.
Absolutely.
So the idea of it popping day one, they can cash out and get their money.
Yeah.
Like, that's the entire purpose.
An IPO is initial public offering.
Yeah.
So it's when a stock or part of a company goes out there into the world for us regular people to invest our money in.
Yeah.
After all the big companies then took their pieces
and everyone cashed out.
And then we're left with it for the next month. Because I'm like a long-term holder.
Yeah.
I don't believe in like the short-term thing. So
as you should be, because most people don't actually know what they're doing. Myself included. Like if you don't have speed and access to information, you're going to lose long term. And these guys are like buying like short dated options with like 1 or 2 months to expiry. You can lose. That's the fastest way for you to lose all your money.
Absolutely.
It's very binary. Either you make a little bit of money or you lose everything.
Absolutely.
Like you can't afford to take that type of risk.
And also for the guest watching, options are when you bet on whether a stock. I mean, listen, there's a wide slew of people, but basically what options is you basically bet on a stock whether it will do good, whether it will do bad. When it does good, call. When it does bad, put.
Yeah.
Just calls and puts. So they're usually like these contracts. It could be a week, a month, 6 months. There's a stock price. So if I buy a piece of a company at let's say $1 in January, I could say, you know what? By April, if it's $6, I'll buy a bunch of these and then I'll sell it. Then I'll make the money back in layman's terms, right?
You literally have the right
to
buy something
absolutely
at a predetermined price. And if the stock price goes above that strike price,
absolutely
you make money. If it goes below, you don't have to buy the asset.
No, you don't.
So they're nice, but they're usually used as like a hedging tool and not like a betting tool, but we use it as basically gambling nowadays.
Right. So my next question to you is, at what point do you have this mind shift, this mental shift that you want so much more out of what you're doing as a career? At what point would you think that is? Because you just left Central Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You got the degree. At what point do you say, yo, you know what? This is it. Like, this is where I'm going.
Well, like I said, I had those experiences before. Once I decided I wanted to be a finance major, I was like, I want to do this fully, right? So I had a couple of internships like throughout school. So I worked at an architecture firm in human resources randomly. That was really exciting to me because I just like architecture and buildings, etc.
Right.
But it also introduced me to work, right? Actually being in an office environment. The next place I worked was at a Big Four accounting firm. They also do consulting, and I was a consulting intern.
Okay, wow.
That introduced me to scale. It was a 200,000 person company. I'd never experienced that before. Half the time, the team that I was working with was in like London and like Oklahoma City and like all of these different places, and we're all working to get this particular job done. So that was another like level for me. The next place that I worked was an insurance company, and that was a sales and operations intern. And there, I realized the importance of client relationships.
Absolutely.
Because as a salesperson, I just like watched the way in which they talk to clients, the way they build relationships over a short amount of time, like 10 weeks during my internship. So all of those to say, like, I was trying to figure out the sort of path that I wanted to take.
Right.
And I tried a bunch of different things. And I ended up settling on, I worked at Bloomberg as my first job, like right out of school. After applying, obviously. And
straight to Bloomberg?
Yeah, first.
Wow.
First job. So I was there as a fixed income analyst for maybe a year, a little over a year. And that was the foundation of like my financial education. Because when you're learning finance in school, it's very cut and dry. Right. You only learn stocks. That's it. And the world is a lot bigger than stocks. The fixed income market is a lot bigger than stocks, right? You don't learn anything about early economics. I mean, I took like a micro and a macro class, like etc. Like you learn the very basics, but you don't learn the bare minimum of the business.
Absolutely.
And so, Bloomberg, with their 13 weeks of training while I was at the company, like really started introducing me to a lot of concepts that I didn't really understand before. And yeah, so to answer your question in short, like I had already decided that I wanted to go down that path,
absolutely.
But I was taking different paths in order to like get ultimately to like where I'm
at. And I actually want to applaud you because throughout everything you just mentioned, the word intern came after everything, internship.
Yeah.
And it's like, we always want to stress the importance of learn the space that you're in.
Yeah.
Intern. And I know, listen, there are times when people are pressed to make money, right? Some internships are paid, some aren't. But just interning just puts you in a room with people. You get to pick their brains, Yes, you may apply for internship and it's free, But that knowledge that you're gaining, that
Yeah.
knowledge is priceless.
I will say all my internships were paid, so that made it a lot
And
easier.
that's even better.
Yeah.
So guys, if you're out there, you're looking for a job in finance, look up some paid internships, help yourself out, but just keep that resume
Yeah.
very hardy, so when it's time to, I guess, pitch or sell yourselves to these companies, you're adequate enough to
Yeah.
say, listen, I got this history in finance, I've done this, that, and
Yeah.
the third. So in your financial journey,
Mm-hmm.
you were in a 200,000 employee company,
Yeah.
right? You're working with these people from different walks of life. What does teamwork or getting the job done in the financial sector mean for you?
Everything that you do requires internal consensus.
Right.
So you are never making a decision sort of in isolation.
Exactly.
Um
Always in a group.
yeah, so like right now I'm actually at a bank.
Yeah.
Um there's the deal team, which
Mm-hmm.
consists of like maybe 3 people in
Mm-hmm.
total. Um there is our asset management team
Right.
who manages the portfolio after the deal is
Absolutely.
brought in. There is the credit team who their job is basically to say no to anything that looks
Shady.
suspicious, right? Um and so we can't make any final decisions without
Right.
sign off from each of these parties, right? And so it starts at the very beginning, socializing the idea, socializing the deal, right? Or whatever, if we have a certain change that's coming up with like one of our loan agreements,
Mm.
socializing that with them, right? Um, making sure that one, they understand, and two, they have the opportunity to take the information that you present to them, go away, and come back with questions, right?
Absolutely.
And then making sure that every single one of their questions are answered, right? And that they feel comfortable with the deal. Once you have that from one party, you can then move to the next party.
Right.
Then they're going to have a completely different set of questions and
Okay.
expectations and,
Yes.
et cetera, et cetera. So it takes time. It's like a long process to go from deal origination to deal close.
Right.
But yeah, it's about building that consensus and like building those relationships. And even outside of just the deals themselves, making sure that you're building the relationships with those individuals on a personal level. Because if I'm dealing with my friend and we're laughing and joking all day, when the time comes to actually do business, now we can have a real conversation. And I feel comfortable with you, and I know you. I know that you're not going to lie to me. Like
Right.
there's a basis of personal relationship that's there that creates a certain level of expectation um in our dealings,
Absolutely.
and so it makes it a lot easier to do business.
Right. So, guys, again, we're stressing the importance of interning. We're stressing the importance of just building strong relationships with your coworkers, with
Yeah,
your teams, and or just have a productive work environment, right?
yeah.
So we have the two out of the three in terms of interning, building relationships. What do you think will be number three to ensure or ensue someone's success, in the financial world? What would you think?
Assuming that you're the dumbest person in the room
Yeah,
and working hard not to be. So
that's actually that's I like that one.
yeah.
I like that one a lot.
So like I said, I started at Bloomberg. I worked in advertising for
Hmm.
like 3 years. I decided to take a
Right.
different path, and then I ended up at the bank that I'm at now. Um, I didn't have banking experience.
Hmm.
The Bloomberg experience was very different,
Right.
right? Every single day, from the day I started until like some days, even like now, like recently, it's almost been 2 years. I was staying until 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the
Good
morning,
morning.
reading, working, making sure that I knew my shit.
Absolutely.
Because, and mind you, I got in at 9. I was putting in those days, those crazy days at the beginning, because if you put in all the work at the beginning, you don't have to quite work as hard. You don't have to burn as many calories later on um, in your career. So I was always willing to do that. That grind, that work, that effort, like you don't go anywhere without that. Like if you assume that you're smart, and I say this about parents a lot of the time because everybody thinks their kids are special. Everybody thinks their
Mm,
kids are smart, whatever. None of that shit matters. Excuse me again.
you good?
But
It's for adults only.
yeah, but like if you assume that you're the smartest person in the room, it means you're not going to want to work as hard to get the job done, unfortunately. And then you're going to have someone who's half as smart as you blowing past you because they just pulled 80-hour weeks for 6 months straight trying to learn, right? Like all of this stuff is like not rocket science. But you have to come in with like an unwavering sort of like work ethic and always be willing to like push it forward however you
And I also feel as if outside of the unwavering work ethic, it's keeping the cup half empty, right?
can. Yeah,
You can't pour anything else into the cup when it's full already.
yeah,
So leaving that space just to want to learn more about the craft is
yeah,
also important too, because you said something so important, putting in those hours just to get ahead.
yeah.
Just because, in your head, yo, these guys who are in the room with me, they know so much more.
You,
But God forbid they turn and they go, well, hey Drew, what do you think about such and such? And you don't even understand the vernacular. You just get left out on the island
yeah.
by yourself. But because
And they lose respect for you now that they don't value your opinion,
absolutely,
etc.
but because you properly prepared yourself,
Yeah,
what they say, proper preparation
yeah,
prevents poor performance.
correct.
So because you've put in the work and you have that notion already, it's like when they come and they turn to you, now the respect level is there, they value your opinion, and now
Yeah,
you're an active member in the workspace, because there are times where you have people in the workspace but they're not active at all.
right.
They're just stringing themselves along.
That's very
But
true.
being active is what gives you that respect. It's when they go, well, you know what, that was a very good point you brought up. Even if they disagree, they still have to respect that you already had the information, you did your due diligence.
Yeah,
So you're jumping into this financial career. Do you have any siblings?
yeah. I have one older sister. Yes.
Okay. And now is she into the same thing you're
No,
into?
she's not. So she's a dispatcher
Okay,
for
good.
that. Yeah,
It's
dispatcher
a,
for the
so
MTA. She actually has the same job as my mom.
oh wow.
Yeah, they're very good jobs. Like
Yeah,
very good. Work for the
absolutely.
MTA, etc. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
The only reason why I ask you is because with you mentioning your mom, and your mom sitting there and she's having that conversation with you, well, you see how your friends live, you see how this person lives,
yeah.
you have to make the choice. Often wonder when someone has siblings if that same type of advice is contagious, right?
I think it was the same advice, but it was at a different point in my mother's life. So like she had my sister when she was 17 years old.
Right.
She had me when she was 27. You
Big
are in a
yes.
completely different
Different
headspace in
space.
those years,
Absolutely.
and so you learn things along the way that I think
Absolutely.
prepare you for having a kid.
That
That's
is
why I
that
don't
that's a
believe in
very
having kids like super young because you don't
yes.
know anything, right?
That is a very vital
Um,
point.
and not that my sister turned out, she's great.
No,
She's
right, right,
an
right.
amazing mom, works very
Absolutely.
hard, like etc.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that like there's certain lessons that she learned along the way that I got the benefit of because I just happened to come along a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because I always tell people timing is so important. If you're not around during a certain time, there's just certain things you can't relate to, right? But being born in that moment, having an older sister, having a mother, having that example for your mom, just sit down and say you have options.
yeah,
But in that whole, not let's not call it a speech, but in that whole conversation, she's telling you, listen, everyone in life has choices.
yeah,
If you want to live a certain way, you have to work a certain way.
yeah,
And if you don't want to, this will be your life.
yeah.
And I feel like it's so important as people, as a culture, as Americans, we all have these decisions to make. Now, granted, you can't help where you're born.
Yeah.
You can't help your environment at times, but as you get to a certain age, you're a little bit you have more control, right?
Yeah.
You're able to study, you're able to go to school, and there are so many programs out there to help people. We just have to, kind of do the due diligence and dig.
Find those opportunities.
Absolutely. So as you're climbing in your career and you're becoming a value member, within your workspace, how does that affect your day-to-day relationships with people outside of work? Because I would assume that you work long hours?
Yeah, work long hours.
And are you
This,
able to
yeah,
have a social life outside of the work at this point?
not during the week. No,
Okay.
like Monday through Thursday. Nah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah,
That's very honest of you too to
yeah.
say.
Well, I
Because
mean,
yeah, I mean some
it's
you
the
know how some
reality.
people
Yeah.
are. Some people, yeah, I get to do this, that, but no.
Nah, I don't. I mean, like
No.
there are days, obviously, like Monday, Tuesday, where maybe I'll get it at like 6:37. It's a little bit easier to
Mm.
manage. But there are a lot of days where I'm at like 9:30, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. Like it just happens
I
like
mean
that
that's
sometimes.
that's 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 the grind. So
Yeah.
if you could just tell the people what exactly do you do for a living now?
So I work at a bank. Um, I work in securitized products. We basically in a warehouse lending role. So we basically lend money to a bunch of private equity companies who go out and buy single family homes. That's what I do. They don't do it 100% with their own capital. They borrow some of the money. That's why they come to us,
Yeah.
and we lend our firm's balance sheet.
So you guys would be considered a hedge fund?
No, we're a bank.
Oh, just a bank?
Yeah, we just lend money.
Oh, okay. So I know that there are banks that lend, there are hedge funds that thing, and they're also venture capitalists, right?
In private equity, yes.
Yes, these are the people who take their own money, then they go and they buy these things, no?
Yes. So
Right.
It's a little bit. There are a couple of different paths here.
Right.
What I do in warehouse lending is like a classic like banking role. We have client relationships. Our clients are trying to accomplish certain strategies.
Right.
They're trying to buy certain assets. They're looking for leverage to do it.
Good.
Right.
Right.
They go to banks to borrow the money in order to lever up those assets. In the
Right.
same way that if I'm a real estate investor,
Right.
I'm going to go to a bank and borrow money to lever up that asset. Right.
Absolutely.
The only difference here, instead of buying a multifamily property or an office property, they're buying single family homes. It's the same exact concept though, right? So it's just a bank. The private equity guys are guys that are looking to generate high returns for their investors, for their LPs. So that's a separate sort of like, we're not trying to take on a whole bunch of risk to accomplish what we're trying to do.
Minimal risk.
We're not levering up our balance sheet in order to make sure that we're making as much profit as possible.
Absolutely.
It's partially a client service. It's partially like a way for the bank to like make some interest on their own balance sheet.
Right.
Like it's very safe. We do what it's called senior secured lending.
Right.
Where like we're first position in every loan that we have. So like if the client like goes and like forecloses, we're owed first. And also we don't have anyone that's like typically like sub to us. Sometimes we have like structures where like they'll have like a mezz portion of the loan. But that's very rare. Like we very rarely have like other mezz guys in there. But yeah, so there's the bank piece, there's the private equity piece, there's the hedge fund piece, which is those guys are effectively making bets in the public markets levered.
Okay.
So that's
right.
So they're borrowing money as well, but they're borrowing money and then deploying their own capital to buy certain assets. Those assets are usually the public market, their bonds and their stocks usually.
Okay.
You have like some like very large hedge funds like Citadel, for example.
Absolutely.
Who are like market makers.
Yes.
That just like provide liquidity to the market. So like if you want to buy and sell, like a lot of times like guys like these exchanges will go to like Citi to like execute, or Citadel, excuse me, to execute those trades. Venture capital is also interesting. Venture capital is an offshoot of private equity. They just invest a lot earlier in the life cycle. Classic private equity.
They get there first. Yeah.
Yeah. Classic private equity invests in mature businesses that have very healthy, very stable cash flows. Why? Because they borrow so much money to lever up their investments in order to buy the company.
Absolutely.
The company needs to have strong cash flows in order to pay off that debt.
Absolutely.
That's private equity. Venture capital, there's usually no cash flows at the beginning at all. They're taking a gamble on some fledgling startup company that has like a that has some goal, some dream to become large at some point in time.
And those are called like the startups.
Yeah. And that business model is like, all right, 99% of these are gonna fail, but one of these are gonna become the next Facebook.
Yes. And when one pops,
that's where you make your return.
Absolutely.
So it's just a bunch of different strategies, a bunch of different types of firms that are in financial
Absolutely.
services.
Now, with this being the Just Takes a Village podcast, we ask every guest who have sat in your chair, who are the members of your village or your support systems that just kept you afloat as you've been on this financial journey? Like, who are the members that really say, you know what, Drew, keep going, don't quit? Because I'm pretty sure with all these hours, you must have been stressed. You must have had your head down at times.
Yeah.
You must have been like, I'm not going to say that you've said, is this for me? But it's like, those hours, it does something to you, you know? So who are the members?
I will say I like it though. Like I like that grind.
I mean,
I feel good when I'm like when I do that. However, there are times where I am very, very stressed. Like I think that everybody needs like one person that has like that provides them with unconditional love.
Right.
And as long as you have that one person, you know that that's not going anywhere. I think that you can sort of like manage. And my mother's happens to be that for me. She provided that from a very, very young age, and I know that that's always there. Obviously, I get that from everyone in my family.
Absolutely.
But I do also happen to get that from everyone in my family.
But mom did it for you.
But yeah, like she's obviously like the main person that provided that sort of like support. And then outside of that, just like having strong relationships with friends who are doing positive things. Like when I get a chance to like not talk about work, I can like relax, have a little bit more fun, like that type of thing. Like it's nice to have that support system. And then even so the way that I got into my job through a program, there was like a cohort
Right.
of us that sort of came in
Yeah.
here together. I lean on them because they understand the experiences that I'm having. Like sometimes, like if I was there by myself, a lot of times I would think that I'm going crazy. But I have other outlets that like people who actually understand what I'm going through, that are going through the same things, that I can lean on as well to, sort of help out. So there are a few different things, right? So it's just family. That's probably the baseline. It's having like a strong friend group that has nothing to do with your work. And then it's having people at work that understand what you're going through, that you can sort of
So
vent to.
basically, the regular family, the work
Exactly.
family, and the friends family.
Exactly. And the reason I say that is because, like, especially the last one,
Hmm.
is because I can talk to my mother, I can talk to
Yeah,
my sister all day about the stress that I'm dealing with at work, but they don't understand it.
you don't.
They're gonna support me though.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you need that breadth, you know, a
That's
circle
that's
to
that's
lean on.
very profound, man. I mean, we've had other guests come on the platform. And, everybody's been mentioning like their mothers, and
Yeah,
it's so heartwarming to know that, the last 10, 11 guests, everyone has had a strong mother in their life,
that's right.
and I always tell people, years ago, it was a norm to have good parents. Now it's a luxury,
Mm,
because there's so many things going on. But it's like to have a mom instill that level of diligence in you. Yo, keep going, keep going. You have options. To have a friends group outside of work that could just take your mind away, but to also have that work family to just to
yeah,
say, you know what, Drew, this is what we're doing today. Let's try our best to stay focused. I mean, to me, it sounds like you're in a very blessed situation in life,
I agree.
and you worked hard to get where you are. Always have this thing of telling the guests, listen, man, I may not know you from a hole in the wall, but I am extremely proud of you. From the bottom of my heart, I'm extremely proud of you. You're making shifts and changes out here in the world. You're understanding. My only goal for you now, pay it forward and teach it to the
Of course.
generation underneath you. It's your role model. You are, and I want you to understand that you're a role model just for even coming on here and just sharing, your life story with the world. And it may not have been everything into every single facet or detail,
Mm,
but it's like, how often do you have someone explain their financial journey
yeah.
to to others? Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, but I have a long way to go. I do look like I think I've done pretty good things like in my life, but I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish. Like I'm
Absolutely.
so not done, and I'm ready
So much more to go.
to. Yeah,
And now my obviously people are gonna want to know, what are you doing during your off time when you're not knocking these hours out at work?
yeah. I go to the gym. I play basketball wherever I
Okay.
can. I go out with my friends. I
Absolutely.
go to dinners, just like regular
Absolutely.
stuff, like regular
Just
calm
something
stuff.
like calm. And do you get a
Yeah,
chance to like travel and leave the country?
that's one thing I actually really need to work on. I'm not even gonna lie.
It's
I don't
open to
travel.
everybody, yeah.
Yeah, I don't travel nearly enough. I haven't gone out of the country. I don't think in like maybe 2 years. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but I need to. I'm trying to plan like a solo trip for like the end of this year.
Absolutely.
I'll probably end up in Europe for like a
That's
week or
also
two.
very honest too. A lot
Yeah,
of people won't admit that they're not traveling enough.
yeah,
But it's like you have the career, you're making decent money, you're
yeah.
doing well for yourself, but there's still a little bit of recreation that needs to be had.
Nah, definitely. Yeah,
You got to be able to just stretch your legs, even though I feel like we have that in common. You'll still probably be thinking about work on vacation,
yeah,
but it's like, you know what? The balance is necessary.
yeah. Definitely,
It is.
definitely.
I mean, listen, I want to personally tell you thank you for coming on the platform.
Of course.
I appreciate you just
Yeah,
taking the time out of your day, as with the bad weather and all, just to share your story, man.
yeah.
And anything else you want to tell the people? Any piece of advice you could tell somebody who
Nah, that's it.
wants to start their financial career?
Well, I think that we talked about like a lot of things, but I think
Mm,
I said some of the crucial ones, primarily that like hard work and dedication and like caring
absolutely.
is like obviously the key to like any success. Um, and obviously you exude this yourself,
I
positivity,
appreciate that. Thank you.
always constantly like being positive, always believing in yourself, believing like the
Got
outcome,
to.
and believing that you will go even further than you think initially.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's it.
I mean, man, thank you for coming on the
Of course.
platform. And it's just like that, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Just Takes a Village podcast.